The story begins with an ordinary guy who, after completing his graduation, has been working at a consulting firm for quite some time. While his job is fulfilling, he has a significant void in his life. He hasn't had a girlfriend for the past 37 years, a fact that haunts him. However, one day he suddenly finds himself in a different world and a different body, transformed into a slime creature amidst goblins and wolves, facing various dangers. Today is a beautiful day in Tokyo, and our main character, Mikami Satoru, is enjoying the day with his close friend Tamura. Tamura's girlfriend Mio is also with them, and they might have plans to go somewhere for lunch together. Satoru teases Mio, mentioning that she seems to be getting quite famous lately, which he heard from some people. However, Tamura dismisses Satoru's comment as a joke and suggests they go to a nice yakiniku, grilled meat, restaurant, Satoru's favorite dish. But just then, a frantic man emerges from the crowd, approaching Mio with anger. Tamura tries to protect Mio, but Satoru steps in front of him, and the stranger's knife pierces Satoru's back deeply. He falls to the ground covered in blood, feeling the pain and warmth. Suddenly, a voice enters his ears, claiming to have solved his problem. Satoru doesn't want to die so easily. Another voice tells him that his tolerance for pain has increased. His body has lost nearly half its blood, so a power has enabled his body to function without blood. Tamura and Mio watch in shock as Satoru's condition deteriorates. His body has become resistant to thermal fluctuations. Satoru believes that he is about to die and asks Tamura to destroy his hard drives so that no one can use it. Tamura wishes to strengthen the bond between Satoru and Mio and promises to pray for their safety even after his death. However, there's one desire left unfulfilled. Satoru didn't anticipate dying a virgin. Someone who practices celibacy for 30 years becomes as powerful as a wizard, and someone who does it for 40 years becomes a monk. Satoru didn't complete his 40 years, so he receives a unique power. Satoru is having trouble comprehending the situation as he yearns for peace in his final moments. A short while later, he regains consciousness, remembering everything that happened recently. He recalls the deep dagger wound, but he doesn't feel anything at the moment. He's neither cold nor warm. Satoru can't even feel his hands. However, soon he begins to feel the flow of power within his body. He contemplates that he should have been in a hospital at this point, but instead, he finds himself on a rocky surface. He wonders where he is and finds everything quite bizarre. When he touches a plant, it melts into his body. No human could do such a thing. But soon, Satoru starts to regain awareness of his new body and realizes that he is transformed into a slime creature. A robust young man has become a tiny drop of jelly. This is his rebirth. Satoru initially thinks it's all a dream, but somewhere along the way, he begins to develop a fondness for his new form. He no longer needs to eat or sleep. He's told that he can absorb anything he touches and keep it inside him for as long as he wants. This is the same voice he heard before he died. Satoru has become a predator who can assimilate the characteristics of whatever he devours. Curious, Satoru examines the plants he recently consumed, gaining detailed knowledge about the hypocute flower. This herb contains a magical wool that allows Satoru's new body to harness energy. He then proceeds to eat all the hypocute herbs in the cave to accumulate as much magical wool as possible. Satoru also identifies Magistone ore and begins consuming it as well, as it's the rarest and most valuable rock in the cave. While swimming in the water, Satoru suddenly crashes into a large stone. Surprisingly, he doesn't feel any pain this time as he can heal his wounds as a slime. Just then, he hears a heavy, resonating voice, but he can't see anything at that moment. Satoru dismisses it as his imagination. When he mentions this to the voice, it reveals itself as the shadow of a massive dragon. The dragon speaks kindly but mentions that it seems Satoru has lost the will to live. This terrifies Satoru, who had no idea that someone could read his thoughts. The dragon bursts into laughter and states that it will show itself but has some conditions. It wants Satoru to promise not to run away once it reveals its true form, which Satoru readily agrees to. The dragon explains that it has been trapped here for 300 years and has grown bored in isolation. It yearns for new friends. The dragon instructs Satoru to use his magicules, and when he does, the surroundings become vibrant and real. However, when Satoru finally sees the colossal dragon before him, his legs tremble, but he remembers the promise and doesn't try to escape. The dragon reveals itself as Veldora, the storm dragon, and tells Satoru that they will meet again soon. Slimes usually lack the capacity for thought, but Veldora senses something unique in this slime because Satoru was once a human before his rebirth. In this world, only a few individuals are granted the opportunity for rebirth, and when Veldora made the request, Satoru agreed to stay. Veldora then shared that 300 years ago, during a battle, he was sealed here by a girl with extraordinary superpowers. She used a ritual involving 30 mages to accomplish this feat. Satoru began to see this world as if it were a video game, as he too was once a solitary human, and 300 years seemed relatively short to him. Veldora initially felt hesitant about forming a friendship with a slime, but he eventually realized that embracing companionship was better than being alone. So they decided to become friends. Satoru now had a new life and a new friend in the form of a storm dragon. Meanwhile, as promised, Tamura destroyed his entire computer system and even expressed his intention to name his future son Satoru. This unexpected turn of events had changed Satoru's life in unimaginable ways, and he embraced this new world with open arms, accompanied by his newfound friend, Veldora the Storm Dragon. Veldora shared with his new friend that he hadn't used his magic for the past 100 years, and if he were to run out of magic tools, it would mean the end of his existence. Satoru, now Rimuru, did his best to find a solution to free Veldora from this curse, but his system couldn't provide a solution. However, there was a way. If Rimuru put Veldora into analysis mode within his body for some time, they might find a way to break the curse. Veldora was skeptical about this approach, but Rimuru was determined to do anything for the sake of their friendship, even with his predator skills. Hearing this, Veldora burst into laughter, holding his belly, wondering how a slime could carry such a massive dragon. He suggested that Rimuru should stay here while he waits. Rimuru, eager to gain Veldora's trust, accepted his condition, but on one condition. Veldora must give him a new name. Without a name, people would only call him Monster. Veldora agreed and named Rimuru, which thrilled him. Rimuru then named Veldora Tempest in return, signifying their newfound bond as part of the same family. After sharing some pleasant moments, Rimuru absorbed Veldora into himself, assuring him that they would meet again. The cave where Veldora was sealed is located in the depths of the Jura forest, surrounded by several regions like Falmas and Blumend. In the Blumend region, news of Veldora's disappearance has already reached Minister Baron Variard, who informed the guild master, Master Fuse. Baron is concerned about what actions the guild should take because the disappearance of a dragon could incite turmoil among monsters. Eastern countries might also take advantage of this situation. According to Baron, if they were to explore the jungle route, they might encounter the ruler of the Jura forest. Fuse decides to investigate this matter personally. Meanwhile, Rimuru continued to explore the cave for a few days, consuming any herbs or magistone he found along the way. He even mastered a new skill called Water Blade, which allowed him to slice through strong objects with ease. While wandering, he encountered a terrifying-looking giant snake, but compared to Veldora, it wasn't much of a threat. Rimuru swiftly beheaded it with his Water Blade skill and devoured its entire body. However, the taste didn't appeal to him. Rimuru realized that he could now use the snake's poison and change his form as well, further expanding his abilities. As Rimuru continued his journey, he encountered dangerous creatures along the way, such as chameleons and centipedes, and absorbed their abilities into himself. Now he no longer feared any threats and thoroughly enjoyed his journey. Eventually, he came across a sinister-looking praying mantis. After defeating it, the creature began to speak. After spending several weeks in the cave, Rimuru finally stumbled upon a gate, possibly leading to the outside world. Before he could take any action, the door opened on its own and 3 strangers appeared. One of them was a girl. Although Rimuru didn't understand English, he tried to comprehend their language through sound waves. However, the trio turned transparent within moments and continued deeper into the cave. Rimuru, seeing the gate left open, decided to leave the cave. Upon stepping through the gate, Rimuru found himself bathed in sunlight, feeling invigorated. He was in a jungle filled with strange creatures. Rimuru eagerly wanted to reunite with his friend Veldora and express his happiness. However, he was suddenly confronted by a goblin army, who seemed terrified upon seeing him. Their leader asked Rimuru what he was doing there. Rimuru, thinking that they couldn't understand him, simply said hello with a shout, inadvertently scaring the goblins even more. They explained that they had sensed a powerful monster in the area and had come to find it. The goblin leader then asked for Rimuru's assistance. Rimuru was brought to their village where the elder welcomed him. He explained that their village had been under constant threat from monsters ever since their god had disappeared a month ago. They had attempted to fight back but suffered losses due to their small numbers. Rimuru was curious how he, a seemingly ordinary slime, could help. The elder then revealed that no ordinary slime emitted such a strong aura. When Rimuru examined his own aura using his skills, he was surprised and realized why the goblins were so frightened. However, he couldn't understand why humans couldn't sense his aura. The goblins explained that direwolves, a type of wolf monster, had attacked them from the east. The direwolves had killed many goblins and injured others. A single direwolf could easily take down several goblins, and their village was now in grave danger. They had no one left to defend them. After hearing their story, Rimuru asked what he could receive in return for his help. The elder, on the verge of tears, simply asked Rimuru to remain their loyal protector. Safety was all they needed. Just then, the sound of a direwolf attack echoed through the village, causing panic. The elder tried to calm his people, But Rimuru suddenly stepped forward and declared that he, Rimuru Tempest, would protect them. As Rimuru prepared the goblins for battle, he found that none of them seemed capable of fighting. The chieftain's son assured him that they were willing to fight to the death if necessary, but emphasized that they needed to prioritize their own safety above all else. Their first priority was to heal the injured goblins, and Rimuru promptly used his energy to heal their wounds, completely rejuvenating them. That night, in the depths of the Jura forest, the wolf leader gave the order to attack, believing that no goblin would escape this time. The wolves discovered a fence the goblins had set up and a slime standing before it, warning them to leave. Enraged, the wolves launched their attack without hesitation, but Rimuru had already set up a trap with sharp wires. As the wolves charged, they were met with a deadly barrage of wires that severely wounded or killed many of them. The leader, witnessing this massacre, charged at Rimuru in a fit of rage, but fell into the same trap, which led to his decapitation by Rimuru's water blade. The remaining wolves, overwhelmed by the situation, either surrendered or offered themselves to Rimuru. He absorbed their leader and took on his appearance, ordering the wolves to leave the area or face death. They all chose to follow Rimuru, now considering him their master. The goblins celebrated their victory, and the next morning, Rimuru noticed that their numbers were nearly equal between goblins and wolves. He decided to pair them up to form duos, ensuring that they could all stay together. Rimuru then lectured them on friendship and unity and explained various aspects of life, including food and shelter. However, he realized that they didn't have names, which was a strange revelation. The goblins revealed that they didn't have individual names, which surprised Rimuru. Determined to fix this, Rimuru took it upon himself to give them names, starting with the elder, whom he named Rigurd. Rigurd's son became Rieger, and soon Rimuru began assigning names to all the goblins. The process was emotional for them, and Rimuru was intrigued by their strong reactions to receiving names. As the naming continued, Rimuru began to name the wolf pack. He worried that they might still harbor resentment given the death of their leader, so he chose to name the leader's son Ranga. Ranga was pleased with the name, but just as Rimuru continued naming the wolves, something unexpected happened. Rimuru suddenly lost control of his body and transformed into a liquid-like state. Rimuru's body remained in sleeping mode for the next 3 days because he had depleted a significant amount of his magicules all at once. Although he was alive, he couldn't feel or perceive anything during this time. However, he was still fully conscious, and his well-being was closely monitored by those around him. Rigger, in particular, was deeply concerned about Rimuru's condition, and everyone was eager for him to wake up. On the third morning, Rimuru finally regained consciousness. To his surprise, he saw a beautiful girl standing before him who appeared slightly different from before. When he looked at Rigurd, he noticed a dramatically muscular body. Rimuru explained that these changes were a result of the new names they had received, which had absorbed his magicules. The happiness they felt due to this transformation was evident. Ranga, in his evolved form, excitedly entered the scene and displayed his overwhelming strength. Everyone was delighted that Rimuru had awakened, and they were celebrating. However, when Rimuru's gaze fell on Gobta, he noticed no significant change in him. Rimuru inquired about it, and Ranga explained that the wolves had evolved because they were all connected to each other. Consequently, they had decided to change their team name to the Tempest Wolves. Ranga's joy was palpable as he shared this news. Rimuru, looking at his companions, realized that the wolves had evolved due to their unity and teamwork. However, when Ranga got too carried away and tried to demonstrate his power by striking the ground, Rimuru was thrown off balance and fell flat on his face. Rimuru explained that being strong wasn't enough. They needed to work together as a family to ensure their survival, focusing on securing food and shelter. He proposed some new rules, including not attacking humans, refraining from infighting, and treating weaker races with respect. When Rigger asked why they shouldn't attack humans, Rimuru expressed his fondness for them. He also argued that humans were intelligent and could pose a significant threat if provoked. Rimuru emphasized that they shouldn't underestimate weaker races, advocating for kindness and understanding. Rimuru officially appointed Rigurd as the leader of the goblins and charged him with overseeing their well-being. Rigurd accepted the responsibility gladly. Rimuru divided everyone into teams and assigned them various tasks. However, they faced a shortage of skilled artisans for building and clothing. Rimuru decided to seek help from the Dwarven City, where they could find the skilled artisans they needed. Rigurd would stay behind to look after everyone while Rimuru, along with some wolves and goblins, embarked on a journey to the Dwarven City. Rimuru and his companions, along with Gobta, were traveling rapidly northward along the banks of the Emeld River. News of their journey had already reached the Dwarven Kingdom. The newly evolved Tempest Wolves were running swiftly through the air. During the evening, they decided to take a break by the riverbank to rest for a while. When Rimuru inquired, Rigurd explained that his brother's name was Rigurd Kun Lord Gelmund, who served as the general of the Demon Lord's army. This was the same person Veridor had mentioned to Rimuru. The next morning, they resumed their journey. Along the way, Rimuru couldn't help but wonder if he harbored any feelings of vengeance against his father. He clarified that Ranga and the others would always consider Rigurd as their master and serve him faithfully. One night, as they contemplated dinner, Rimuru asked Gabda about the city they were heading to. Gabda described Dwargon as a unique city, a world within itself, built by humans, elves, and various other races working together. However, Rimuru was particularly intrigued by the mention of elves. Gabda continued to explain that Dwargon had strict laws against conflict and fighting within the city, and severe punishments were imposed on those who broke these laws. This was largely due to the formidable military might of Dwargon, which had remained undefeated for centuries. What was expected to be a journey of more than 3 months was completed by the Direwolves in just 3 days. Upon their arrival, Rimuru was deeply engrossed in thoughts about the elves, and his face turned red. After some discussion, they decided that Rimuru and Gabda would enter the city, accompanied by the Dwargon guards to bring the Dwargons back to their group outside the city gates. However, when they arrived at the main gate, they found a long line of people all undergoing thorough inspection. Some troublemakers in the line noticed Rimuru and Gabda and started harassing them. Gabda remembered that he had been beaten up by similar thugs the last time he encountered them. When these ruffians saw a goblin with a slime, they began to make fun of them. Rimuru had strictly forbidden the goblins from getting involved in confrontations with humans. Therefore, until Rimuru resolved the situation, Gabda had no choice but to keep his eyes closed. When Rimuru asked them to step aside, their anger flared up even more, and they insisted that the slime should not leave there alive. In response, Rimuru transformed himself into a direwolf to face the troublemakers. Witnessing this sudden transformation, the hooligans began to launch dangerous attacks one after another. However, none of their attacks had any effect on the direwolf. To teach them the lesson, Rimuru let out a powerful roar, sending the hooligans flying like dust in the wind. But that wasn't all. Rimuru also accidentally wounded several other innocent onlookers and guards. The punishment for this incident was decided by the city's authorities. Everyone involved would be confined to the city's jail until further notice. However, Gabda found himself miserable even in prison. When the head of security inquired about Rimuru's intentions, Rimuru explained that he had merely wanted to scare those people away. Despite wanting to apologize for the damages, Rimuru and Gabda were suddenly interrupted by a messenger. The messenger informed them of a recent incident involving a significant number of casualties and injuries among the city's residents and soldiers. It was crucial to arrange medical treatment as quickly as possible. Rimuru decided to help by providing a large drum filled with healing potions. Kaida, the commander of the guards, picked up the drum, and Rimuru was led away to the capital's prison. To pass the time, Rimuru began playing with spider threads in his cell. He even playfully hung Gabda upside down like a bat. After some time, Rimuru received news that his healing potions had been effective in treating the wounded. Some soldiers came to thank him for his assistance. Following this, Rimuru was invited to a grand banquet in his honor. After a delightful feast, Rimuru expressed his desire to visit the city's blacksmiths. He was taken to a workshop where a skilled blacksmith named Kajin worked. Kajin was renowned for his expertise in crafting various weapons and structures. While Rimuru was waiting for Kajin, he was approached by the dwarf brothers Garm and Doj, along with their younger sibling. When Rimuru offered them the chance to accompany him, Kajin refused, explaining that he needed to forge 20 swords for an upcoming battle, and any delay could result in Minister Vesta's anger. It was clear that there was a strained relationship between the two. Rimuru realized he needed a unique type of ore that only Kajin could provide, and the dwarf needed something to incentivize him. Rimuru remembered that he possessed some ore suitable for Kajin's work, a magisteel cluster. This rare material could be used to create powerful weapons. When Rimuru presented the magisteel cluster, Kajin was astounded and agreed to accompany Rimuru. He had a condition, though. Rimuru had to ensure that he could complete his work quickly. Rimuru asked if Kajin already had a well-made sword, and to his amazement, Kajin revealed a magnificent, shining sword whose craftsmanship was exceptional. Rimuru decided to replicate the sword, and in no time he created 20 swords identical to Kajin's masterpiece. Witnessing Rimuru's incredible skills, everyone present became his admirers. Having secured Kajin's assistance, Rimuru decided to take him along. With Kajin by his side, Rimuru was now ready to venture further. Rimuru's fame had grown thanks to his aid and abilities, and he was invited to an extravagant party. Rimuru was excited about the prospect of the party and was particularly eager to meet the various elves he had heard about. In a matter of minutes, they arrived at the Butterflies of the Night, a club filled with stunning elves. The ambience at the club felt like a dream come true for Rimuru. He was surrounded by dozens of beautiful elves, and one of them even hugged him affectionately. All the elves were captivated by Rimuru's presence. It was a moment Rimuru cherished, and he couldn't have asked for anything more. However, good times don't last forever. During the party, Kajin expressed his gratitude to Rimuru and took on the challenge of forging a sword that couldn't be replicated. Rimuru was thoroughly enjoying himself, but little did he know that an elf had made a subtle prophecy about his future. Suddenly, one beautiful elf started doing some seductive gestures to him, which make him visualize his fantasies with elves, but the elf was an astrologer who asked Rimuru if he wanted to see his future partner. When she attempted to read Rimuru's aura, she was surprised to see a magical girl in his future, leaving Rimuru blushing. However, the festivities were abruptly interrupted by Minister Vesta's arrival. The minister was known for his haughty and stubborn nature. He reprimanded Kajin for not working diligently during such a crucial time. Kajin defended himself, leading to a heated argument between them. Vesta called Rimuru a dangerous monster and even referred to him as a loathsome creature. The elves were largely supportive of Rimuru, as he had yet to demonstrate any monstrous behavior. The situation escalated when Vesta poured a glass filled with whiskey on Rimuru in a rude manner. Rimuru had the power to retaliate but restrain himself, determined to keep his emotions in check. However, he couldn't tolerate someone else being mistreated because of him. Kajin, infuriated by Vesta's actions, used a blow marker to deface the minister's face. He declared that he wouldn't tolerate any disrespect towards the guests. This act of defiance surprised Rimuru, and he questioned whether it was the right course of action. Nevertheless, Rimuru admired Kajin for standing up for what was right. Despite his reservations, Rimuru, along with Kajin and others, was arrested. They were confined to the same cell where Rimuru and Gapta had been earlier. Kajin felt regretful for his actions but believed that justice would prevail. Kaido, while reluctant to carry out the arrests, had no choice but to follow orders. After some time, everyone fell asleep, leaving Rimuru to deal with Gapta's incessant snoring. Gapta eventually woke up and, to Rimuru's amusement, claimed that he was leaving Rimuru behind to join his dirwolves and goblins. However, the next morning at the royal court, Kajin was presented before King Gazel Dwargo, and the entire assembly bowed before their ruler. King Gazel Dwargo appeared calm and composed, but he was the true power behind the kingdom. He held absolute authority, and nobody could speak unless he granted permission. Therefore, a representative had to be appointed to speak on Kajin's behalf. Unfortunately, the appointed representative turned out to be corrupt and easily swayed. After judge's intervention, Kajin was given a punishment for his actions to leave the kingdom and never show his face again, and Vesta was spared any further blame. Rimuru was happy to hear about Kajin's fate because it meant that he wouldn't pose any more challenges to them. Vesta's attitude had always been a problem, but now it was no longer their concern. Gazel Dwargo had been aware of Vesta's manipulative schemes for a while, and when Vesta was shown the potion prepared by Rimuru, made from hypocute herbs, he understood the situation. Gazel explained that Vesta had always served himself as the king's aide, but his arrogance had cost him everything. Kegado arrived with his companions, including Kajin. Kajin was now ready for a new journey. Rimuru was pleased with this development as he now had a new and powerful ally, and they had fulfilled their promise. Rimuru knew that he possessed the strength akin to Veldora dragon within him, and he had grown even stronger over time. Gazel Dwargo had a spy keep an eye on Rimuru because he knew that Rimuru was no ordinary monster. He possessed power beyond imagination. Then scene shifts to the Bloomin' Kingdom's guild, where Master Fuse was welcoming his adventurers. The three of them were relieved to have returned from the cave in one piece. Erin was eager to take a bath and refresh herself. Cable mentioned that there was confirmed news of Veldora's disappearance as they had searched extensively and found no trace of him. However, Fuse assigned them their next task, which involved exploring the forest outside the cave. There was a possibility of encountering a dragon there, and Fuse wanted them to keep him informed about any developments. Frustrated, Cable and Erin vented their frustration with some choice words as they were annoyed about having to go back to work without any break. However, their conversation was overheard by a masked girl who insisted on joining them. Erin impulsively agreed to take her along. The secretive girl's name was Shizu. Kajin's arrival had significantly improved the skills of the goblins. Among the dwarf brothers, Garm was a skilled woodworker. Merritt excelled in architectural work, though he rarely spoke. The four of them, along with others, were on the path to transforming the village into a prosperous city. However, the beginning was a bit rocky. When Rimuru first arrived in the village, he was astonished to see the population's reaction. They had developed abilities similar to Veldora's thanks to the names he had given them. Rigard greeted him and other craftsmen with a display of his newfound strength. Rimuru was tasked with giving new names to 300 people, which left him weakened and unconscious for 3 days one more time. This time, Gapta also demonstrated his capabilities by teaching some of the children how to summon a wolf using his power. He had honed this skill while imprisoned, when he had summoned a direwolf to escape from the wall. This training hinted at more powerful techniques that Gapta might possess. Rigurd, who had risen from a lord to a king, continued to upgrade himself. He informed them that some humans had been spotted in the jungle, possibly spies sent to establish a foothold. Currently, they were on the verge of becoming a meal for some giant ants, which had started pursuing them due to Cable's mistake. Eren doubted that they would survive, but Cable was not confident that he would make it out alive either. Suddenly, Shuzu halted and unsheathed her sword, positioning herself in front of them. She proceeded to obliterate the giant ants with a few swift strikes, effectively saving them. She then explained that she had come to take care of the ant problem. Once the danger had passed, they noticed that Shizu was the same girl from their past lives, and Rimuru welcomed her into the village. Rigurd organized a feast in their honor. Cable and his companions stood as if they had been starving for days, appearing quite disheveled. Shizu remained calm and composed. Even during the meal, she did remove her mask. When Rigurd introduced Rimuru as their king, it was hard for him to believe, considering that a slime monster like Rimuru could be found in a goblin village and could save them from the wolves. Nevertheless, they were grateful for his assistance. Rigurd then explained the entire plan to Rimuru, and he began to understand that Veldora's disappearance had caused a lot of concern among the people. They were searching the cave and the jungle for him. Rimuru offered to let them stay there for the night if they wished. In the evening, Shizu and Rimuru spent some time together. When Shizu called him cute and lifted him up, Rimuru joked that it had become a habit for her to treat him that way. Rimuru then revealed that he too was from Japan and shared his story of how he came to this world, including his reincarnation after death. Shizu explained that she had been summoned here through an invocation, a ritual performed by 30 mages over several months. She had been brought here as a weapon and had no knowledge of her past life, except for a vague memory of a fire in her city before her summoning. Rimuru offered to help her find out more about her past and suggested using his communication abilities, but accidentally showed her some inappropriate visuals during the process. Afterward, he visualized her entire city to show her a prosperous and peaceful Japan. However, this caused Shizu to become uneasy, and she collapsed. Rimuru quickly stabilized her. As they were recovering, Keijin arrived to discuss a new project with Rimuru. Shizu looked down from the hill and recalled the day she had first arrived in this world. She remembered the same person who had summoned her, and how he had offered her body as a host to Ifrit, as she had been in a miserable state at the time and of no use to anyone. Shizu was at least alive for now, and Rimuru learned that during her time in this world, a sorcerer named Sorcerer King Leon had wanted to become a demon king. During a confrontation, Leon had ordered Shizu to activate Ifrit, a powerful being, to protect him, and she had done so, vanquishing Leon with Ifrit's immense power. Shizu's time in this world had its share of challenges and moments of happiness. She had encountered a creature in the jungle who had been separated from its owner, and she had given it a name, Pizu, and it had grown stronger. However, one day, Pizu had turned against her owner Leon, and Ifrit had taken control of her body, causing her to lose control over her actions. In the present, Rimuru offered to stay a few more days, but Shizu was determined to carry out her final mission, and Eren was surprised by her resolution, as Shizu had been on a similar mission for years. As they prepared to leave for their mission, Shizu's demeanor seemed to change, and she appeared to struggle to maintain control over herself. As they ventured outside, Shizu's mood became erratic, and she seemed to be battling to regain control over her own body. Suddenly, a massive explosion occurred, shrouding the area in smoke and darkness. Shizu's body was trapped within the blasts. In the midst of the chaos, Shizu transformed into the monster known as Ifrit. Jiddo and his companions, including Eren and Rimuru, were in grave danger as Ifrit began to lay waste to the entire area. Shizu's friends were determined not to abandon her, even though the situation appeared dire. Rimuru's usual attacks, such as the water blade, had no effect on Ifrit. Eren fought with all her might to stop Ifrit, but it seemed like an impossible task. Suddenly, Reingar arrived to rescue Rimuru and the others, but his speed was not enough to outmatch the ferocity of the ongoing battle. Rimuru desperately tried to find a way to defeat Ifrit, who was now causing widespread destruction. Rimuru realized that his ordinary methods were ineffective against Ifrit's strength. In the heat of the moment, Rimuru devised a plan to use Smoke Blast, a powerful attack that would obliterate the entire area. However, using this attack would mean destroying a large portion of the surroundings. Rimuru knew that this was the only option to stop Ifrit. Amidst the chaos, Eren's ice attack managed to injure Ifrit's monster. Rimuru merged with Eren, increasing her power exponentially. With newfound strength, Rimuru unleashed a barrage of icy attacks, decimating the monster army that Ifrit had summoned. Now it was time to confront Ifrit himself. Rimuru faced off against Ifrit's multiple duplicates, but he was determined not to lose. In response, Rimuru used his icy attack strategically to eliminate the duplicates and enrage Ifrit further. Ifrit surrounded Rimuru with his immense flames, but Rimuru's unique body had the capacity to withstand extreme heat. Rimuru's system informed him that his body had the capability to endure and resist intense heat. With newfound confidence, he continued to battle Ifrit, determined to end the fight once and for all. As soon as Ifrit realized that Rimuru had developed affection for him, it decided to bind Ifrit with its spider threads, which also remained unaffected by the flames. Despite Ifrit's countless efforts, it couldn't harm even a single strand of Rimuru's hair. Then, Rimuru managed to swallow and assimilate Ifrit, entrusting it to its special friend, Veldora, who was a fire dragon himself. Seeing Veldora before him, Ifrit's condition began to deteriorate. His situation worsened, and a change began to occur in his behavior. Rimuru provided the possibility of a different world for Ifrit, where it could find peace. Rimuru finally managed to free Shizu from Ifrit's control, and Shizu expressed her immense gratitude. She then proceeded to share her story with Rimuru, explaining how she had encountered a hero after escaping from the Demon Lord. This hero turned out to be a doppelganger of Shizu herself. Initially, she tried to get to know the hero and understand her purpose, but the hero attacked her, showing no recognition. Shizu realized that this was not the one who had sealed Veldora as she had hoped. Shizu tried to communicate with the hero, but the hero seemed to have no memories of her past life. She had been given the same mask that Shizu wore, protecting her from Ifrit's influence. Over time, Shizu had become a renowned hero and instructor, teaching children who came from another world. She had a loyal disciple who had become her grandmaster and took on the responsibilities of the guild. However, Shizu felt that her life was coming to an end, with no purpose left except finding the person who had summoned her. Rimuru asked if she wanted revenge against that person, but Shizu revealed that she merely wanted to meet him and ask some questions. She also inquired about Rimuru's real name, to which Rimuru revealed Mikami Satoru. Shizu felt a sense of relief and asked for permission to merge with Rimuru, just as he had done with Ifrit, so she could finally find peace. She wished to leave behind the world that had caused her so much pain. After merging with Rimuru, Shizu's remaining wish was to meet Leon Cromwell, one of the most dangerous and powerful demon lords. She hoped to question him about his motives for bringing people to this world. Rimuru, taking on the form of Mikami, promised that he would find answers for her soon. Later, as Rimuru absorbed Shizu into his body, she encountered a mysterious woman who had vanished when she tried to approach her. Eren, concerned for Shizu's health, knowing that Rimuru would take care of her. Inside their room, Rimuru encountered Rigurd, who had brought clothes and food for Shizu. However, when he entered, he was surprised to find that Shizu was no longer there. Instead, a young girl stood before them, completely naked. Rigurd recognized her as Rimuru, who had transformed into a miniature version of Shizu. Rimuru explained that Shizu was no longer herself. As Rimuru and Shizu were discussing her transformation and her desire to not mention it to anyone, Eren expressed her sadness at saying goodbye. However, she acknowledged that Rimuru was now their boss and that Shizu was responsible for saving their lives. Kavalen suggested that they should leave and inform Guildmaster Fuse about Shizu, but keep the details of Rimuru and the village a secret. Before departing, they asked Rimuru if he would ever return to his human form. Rimuru transformed back into Shizu's form, and the adventurers thanked him in her likeness. Rimuru also prepared gifts for the departing adventurers, which would be of great help to them, including finely crafted equipment made by the skilled craftsmen of the village. They then bid farewell to Rimuru and headed back to their city. Rimuru also showed the young girl the grave he had prepared on the hill in memory of Shizu, reminding her of the promise to capture Leon Cromwell. Shizu's eyes welled up with tears at the memory. At this point, Rimuru had assimilated both Veradora and Shizu's powers. Suddenly, a strange-looking man with a boar-like face collapsed due to hunger and exhaustion. But someone came to help the man, introduced himself as Gelmund. He decided to give him a new name, Jelf, and granted him a gift: the ability to one day conquer the Jura forest. In addition, Jelf received food to alleviate his hunger. The effects of Rimuru's hard work were now visible in the village as goblins and craftsmen were diligently working to develop the village using the skills they had learned. Without the need for Rimuru's constant supervision, Kavel and the others were doing their best to construct new houses and farms. Rimuru returned to his room and began examining Shizu's mask. He transformed into a human form once more, feeling more comfortable in a human body and appreciating the full use of his senses. He remembered that he could also harness the powers of Ifrit, and he created another copy of himself. However, when he attempted to determine his gender, he realized that he had no gender from his original existence. He briefly considered creating an adult form but felt embarrassed and abandoned the idea. Rigurd arrived to meet Rimuru, who enthusiastically announced his plan to join the royal dinner feast tonight. Rimuru seemed excited about the feast, and he promised to increase the production of various crops if he enjoyed the meal. His companions found his excitement infectious, but Gapta jokingly warned him not to overindulge as it might affect his breast size. Rimuru responded by playfully kicking Gapta aside. Rigurd expressed his intention to prepare bull deer for the royal dinner, a delicacy found in the forest due to changing weather patterns. Rimuru called Ranga and asked him to accompany Rigurd to provide assistance during the potential danger. Rimuru's original plan was to visit Beldora's cave, entering through the same gate he had used before. However, Rimuru decided to wear Shizu's mask to conceal his aura. But suddenly, a default aura started emanating from him, and the mask nearly disintegrated under its influence. Rimuru resolved to wear the mask from now on. However, Rimuru received a message from the system that Ranga is in great danger. Rimuru rushed to Ranga's aid, where he found Gapta with a severe wound inflicted by someone wielding a sword. Rimuru was determined to help his comrade and confronted a group of formidable attackers who were assaulting Ranga and Gapta. Rimuru called Ranga and Rigurd over, and after treating their injuries, he learned that some of his comrades have fallen unconscious due to the mysterious powers of the pink-haired cute girl. Rigurd explained that these individuals were ogres, a group known for their magical abilities, and they were quite powerful. While Rimuru was contemplating whether to take action or negotiate with the ogres, their leader, referring to Rimuru as a Majin, challenged him and demanded to see the true face that Rimuru hid behind the mask. The ogre leader claimed to know Rimuru's friends who looked like pigs and vowed to seek revenge on him. Rimuru's companions were puzzled by these statements. Before Rimuru could make a decision, the ogre leader attacked with his sword. However, Rimuru vanished from his sight and paralyzed the ogre leader using his paralysis breath. He also restrained a female ogre with his sticky steel thread. Rimuru then transformed his body into an armor-like form to deflect the ogre's sword attacks. Despite the ogre's leader and an elderly ogre having figured out Rimuru's tactics and his attack patterns, they continued to engage him in combat. The ogres were well prepared and were even aware of Rimuru's concealed creatures. When the ogres attempted to strike Rimuru again, the red ogre cut off his one arm, leaving Rimuru in a dire situation. Although Rimuru's companions were worried about their master's condition, Rimuru remained calm and regenerated his severed arm. The ogres then unleashed their ultimate attack, the Ogre Flame, on Rimuru. However, Rimuru emerged from the flames and removed his mask, revealing his true form. Rimuru began emitting a powerful aura and created a terrifying thunderstorm using magicules. He generated an enormous tree of lightning, displaying incredible strength. However, this was just the beginning. Rimuru used his magic to split the earth, creating a fearsome display of power. The elderly ogre suggested retreating, but the red ogre, determined not to admit defeat, wanted to continue the battle. The pink-haired ogre intervened, saying that Rimuru is not their enemy and that he possessed unimaginable strength, even though he was not a Majin. She pointed out that if Rimuru were their enemy, he could have annihilated their village easily. Rimuru assured them that he is just a regular slime and that the mask had a different origin from the one they thought. Rimuru's mood shifted, and he forgave the ogres for their earlier actions, recognizing that they had misunderstood the situation. Rimuru invited the ogres to visit their village and learn more about them. He mentioned that they were hosting a royal dinner feast in the village that day. The ogres accepted the invitation, and together with Rimuru and his companions, they embarked on a hunt for bull deers as Rimuru had promised Rigurd a royal feast. The ogre leader mentioned that they did not have individual names, and Rimuru made a mental note of this. In the evening, when Rimuru tasted the meat, the entire village erupted in joy. It was the first time Rimuru had tasted something in this world, and the villagers were ecstatic. The village atmosphere turned festive, and everyone enjoyed the evening. The goblins were diligently learning various skills to develop the village. Even without Rimuru's direct orders, the Cajun and other craftsmen were working hard to build new houses and farms. Rimuru's order to hunt bull deers for a royal feast had resulted in a joyful celebration. Cajun inquired about the orcs who had attacked ogres earlier, as they were surprised to learn that ogres who appeared stronger than orcs had fallen victim to the orcs. The red ogre explained that the orcs had attacked their village, set it on fire, and had weaponry and armor created by humans. These orcs were large in numbers and had faces resembling pigs. This revelation hinted that humans are somehow involved in the orcs' actions. Rimuru gathered around them as they reminisced about the encounter. When the ogre leader confronted Rimuru, he revealed of his misunderstanding of Rimuru as a Majin controlling the orcs. The ogre's misunderstanding led to their initial attack on Rimuru. Now that the misunderstandings were cleared, Rimuru and the ogres enjoyed the royal dinner feast together. The red ogre's sister showcased her culinary skills, impressing the goblins with her ability to create delicious dishes. Rimuru inquired about the ogre's future plans after they had settled down and rebuilt their lives. The ogres revealed their aspirations to form a new kingdom and awaken their dormant potential. Rimuru suggested that they should join forces with the Jura Tempest Federation to ensure their safety, as the orc population in the Great Forest of Jura was growing rapidly. Rimuru warned that the orcs might attempt to establish their dominance over the forest, posing a threat to their village. The ogres pondered Rimuru's proposal, realizing that it could give them greater strength and security. However, they needed time to discuss and decide. Rimuru left them with this thought and returned to his room. The following morning, Ogre's leader approached Rimuru and revealed that they had thought long and hard about his proposal. They agreed to work together with Rimuru and his federation, at least until they could overthrow the orc leader. After that, they would reevaluate their alliance and potentially create a new kingdom. Rimuru agreed to their terms and offered each ogre a new name. As Rimuru began naming them, he suddenly fell unconscious. When he woke up, he found himself cradled in the arms of a beautiful female ogre. Rimuru remembered that he has given him the name Benimaru. Rimuru was delighted to see that the ogres had become even more powerful, now known as the Kijin, and his sister had received the name Shuna, making her even cuter. The girl in whose arms Rimuru had fallen asleep was named Cheyenne, and her beauty and charm had become even more astounding. The elderly ogre had now transformed into a youthful appearance. The ogre with a single horn received the name Sui from Rimuru, while the elderly ogre was named Korob. As Rimuru and the ogres were contemplating names, they were startled by the arrival of a Chiang ogre from the outside. Meanwhile, a massive orc army consisting of thousands of soldiers was advancing towards their next target, the domain of the Lizardmen. They appeared like a vast pack of wolves, and the Lizardman King suspected that something or someone was controlling this enormous army, possibly the Orc Lord. The Orc Lord was a monster so feared that even other monsters trembled at the mention of its name. The question arose as to what the Orc Lord desired. If it truly was an Orc Lord, then saving the Lizardman's kingdom seemed impossible. They needed assistance. The Lizardman King summoned his son, Gabiru, who had recently received the name from Gelmund. As Gabiru's father was about to tell him something important, news from Rimuru's village arrived, showing the goblins practicing with Hakaru. Benimaru, who was with Rimuru, was discussing the Orc Lord, who only reincarnated once a year. He remembered that just before the attack on their village, a masked Majin had appeared, cursing the village as they left. Rimuru asked Benimaru if he believed that the attack was related to this curse. Benimaru replied that even if it was, it didn't matter now because they had Rimuru as their friend. When the name Gelman was mentioned, it struck Rimuru as familiar because Rigger's brother was given name by him. Sui mentioned that he had seen the Lizardman army not too far from where they were. He suspected that the Lizardman chief might have sent them for a specific reason. Gabiru, the Lizardman prince, had arrived with his subordinates, eager to prove himself worthy of becoming the new chief. Gabiru's followers constantly praised him and believed he was destined to be the chief. They had been advocating for his rise to power for some time. Gabiru, on the other hand, was determined to demonstrate his worthiness so that his father could retire peacefully. He was eager to prove that he was now ready to lead. His mates started chanting his name. After several days, significant progress could be seen in their village. Shuna had crafted fine silk fabric from Helmuth cocoon, which was especially exquisite. Cheyenne is now Rimuru's personal secretary, prompting Shuna to hug him as well. Rimuru mentioned that Shuna had the responsibility for the clothing, and he had appointed Cheyenne as his secretary. But no one knew what particular skill he favored her for, maybe her hotness. It seemed that Rimuru enjoyed spending time with her. Meanwhile, the two ogre girls continued to compete for Rimuru's attention, much like cats. When asked about the bickering, Rimuru assigned Shuna to focus on her duties. Cheyenne then led Rimuru away, mentioning that she was preparing a special recipe for him, which Sui could not see, so he discreetly left. Cheyenne presented a dish before Rimuru that resembled a live corpse. Rimuru hesitated to taste it, as if it might be deadly. Nonetheless, he attempted to eat it, but suddenly shoved the spoon into Gappa's mouth. Gappa's reaction was severe, as if he had consumed poison, and he struggled on the floor. Everyone thought he had experienced a near-death experience. Rimuru remarked that next time, Cheyenne should seek permission from Benimaru before preparing meals. Around the same time, Gabiru and his companions arrived near the village. Gabiru calculated the number of goblins in a single glance and felt that he might be incredibly powerful. However, he also realized that goblins had direwolves and a slime with them. This made Gabiru think that defeating the direwolves would be two birds with one stone, since it would also allow them to capture the slime. Meanwhile, Kajin and Hakaru were discussing the village's defenses. Just then, Rimuru offered his perspective and helped solve their problems. While discussing their next steps, Rimuru received news of Rigurd's arrival with the Lizardmen. The ogres were also keen to meet with the Lizardmen. As they approached, Gabiru made a flamboyant entrance and claimed that everyone would gladly work for him. His followers cheered and applauded. Rimuru couldn't understand where he had gained such confidence. Cheyenne became irritated and physically restrained Rimuru in her breast tightly, which gave him pain and pleasure at the same time. When Rigger inquired about Rimuru's sudden change, he mentioned the news of the orc army swiftly advancing towards their jungle. He suggested that everyone should pledge their allegiance to Gabiru so that he could protect them from the approaching orc threat. Observing Gabiru's followers, Rimuru recalled an old saying, "A smart enemy is more dangerous than a foolish friend." As Rimuru's direwolf Ranga angrily appeared before Gabiru, Cheyenne once again physically restrained him. Now Ranga couldn't tolerate Gabiru's boasting any longer. Rimuru explained that the wolves were not under his control but his friends. Ranga, who stood 12 feet tall at his true size, stepped forward. Gabiru initially attempted to flatter Rimuru, but quickly insulted himself by suggesting that he wouldn't want to be a servant to a slime. However, he made a grave mistake by belittling Rimuru, who couldn't stand any insult directed at his followers. Suddenly, Gabda approached them and, to everyone's surprise, announced that he had neutralized the poison with his magic. Ranga then picked up Gabda and informed Gabiru that if Gabda had defeated him, he would have served Gabda for his whole life. Rimuru offered him new equipment at his victory, and Gabda readily accepted. He utilized his abilities cleverly and in a surprising turn of events emerged victorious against Gabiru, leaving everyone shocked. Rimuru knew that no one had expected Gabda to win, and he decided to let them believe that Gabda was intentionally acting weak to surprise his opponents, thus boosting Gabda's reputation. Meanwhile, Rimuru informed the lizardmen that if they want help, they would have to humble themselves and request assistance properly. He suggested that they should take Gabiru away for now. This proposal made everyone leave the village in a hurry. During the night, Sui observed that an orc army of 200,000 is advancing towards the lizardmen's territory, and they needed to make a decision and form a plan quickly. Cajun believed that there might be someone controlling the orcs, perhaps a demon lord. Rimuru also considered the possibility that Geld might be behind it, as well as the involvement of an orc lord. Bedamaru pointed out that an ordinary orc lord would not be able to control such a massive army effectively. Sui's duplicate spotted someone eager to meet Rimuru. Rimuru initially thought it might be another odd creature like Gabiru. However, Sui explained that it was a rare and unique request. A dryad wanted to meet him. Dryads are tree spirits that Rimuru had seen in games. Meeting one was an extraordinary event. As trainee, the dryad emerged from the green energy. She introduced herself and expressed her desire to witness the demise of the orc lord at the hands of Rimuru Tempest. Bedamaru asked trainee there are so many powerful species exist in this world and why she chose goblins in particular. He suspected that there might be some ulterior motive behind her decision. Trainee explained that she had initially considered the ogres but realized that only Rimuru could assist the dryads effectively, as now he has the power of ogres, goblins, and direwolves as well. She also mentioned that dryads had a deep connection with the secrets of the forest, making them valuable allies. Rimuru needed time to consider the request and decided that he needed to discuss it with his followers before making any decisions. He emphasized that as the leader, he couldn't rush into things. During the conference, when Rimuru inquired about the identity of the orc lord, Shuna asked Sui if he had seen any ogres in the ogre village. Sui reported that the village appeared to be empty when he arrived. Bedamaru couldn't understand how the orc lord managed to feed such a large army. Trainee explained that the orc lord possessed a skill called Starved, which he had created himself, and it allowed them to absorb the power and abilities of his subordinates by devouring them. This skill made orcs perpetually hungry, and they viewed other races as a means to increase their strength. Rimuru realized that orcs would consider goblins and ogres as their favorite prey. Trainee believed that a powerful Majin, akin to a demon lord, might be behind the orc lord's actions. She once again requested Rimuru's assistance in eliminating the threat, as the one who had disappeared Veldora and improved the lives of goblins and direwolves could surely contend with an orc lord. Rimuru agreed to join the battle, but he wanted to gather as much support as possible. Rimuru intended to bring the lizardmen into the alliance as well, despite his lack of enthusiasm for Gabiru. Sui assured Rimuru that he would handle negotiations with the lizardman kingdom. The battle was set to begin from the marshlands, and Rimuru hoped that the lizardman's chief would be different from Gabiru. When Gabiru regained consciousness, he pretended not to remember what had happened and bragged about how he had captured a formidable human warrior. He claimed that the goblins were cowards. However, Gabiru soon realized that someone was mocking him. The jester-like figure known as Laplace, a servant of Lord Gelmund, who had come to deliver a warning. Laplace revealed that an orc lord was marching towards their territory and Gabiru was in no position to stop it. His words instilled a new fear in Gabiru, and he immediately turned towards the marshlands, ignoring Laplace. The orc army was swiftly advancing towards their kingdom. The lizardmen chief stated that they couldn't do much to save their realm, as facing 200,000 demons would be a daunting task. Just then, they learned that an outsider had infiltrated their castle and wished to meet with the chief. This intruder emitted a powerful aura even more formidable than any of the lizard folk. This individual presented themselves as Sui, who had become Rimuru's envoy. When the proposal of friendship from Rimuru was offered, the chief stated that they didn't know Rimuru, but Sui explained that Rimuru was acting upon the request of a dryad, and together they would confront the Orc Lord. Chief initially thought that Rimuru was a coward who wanted to win with the help of allies, but Sui silenced him by wrapping his neck with a metal wire. Sui's actions made the chief realize that Rimuru Tempest is indeed a cunning and powerful leader. Sui explained that after taking Rimuru's name, he had transformed into a Cajun, a transformation that was quite rare in the ogre world. Chief had no choice but to accept the offer, as there was no other way, but he expressed his desire to meet Rimuru before the alliance was formed. Sui agreed that Rimuru would come with him in a week and emphasized the need for maintaining peace until then. This news brought a glimmer of hope, as at least one lizardman tribe had a chance to survive the upcoming conflict. The lizardmen understood the gravity of this situation and decided to preserve their strength by avoiding unnecessary conflicts. Gabiru returned to his territory, realizing that his father's offer had been a mistake. He felt that various tribes could unite to attack their territory. Therefore, he focused on strengthening their defenses. Eventually, Gabiru managed to take control of the lizardman tribe, taking his father's vortex spear in the process. Gabiru was determined to show his comrades how a diligent fighter led, and he ordered his tribe to prepare for defense against possible orc attacks. However, Gabiru is unaware of a crucial fact: an orc could consume other orcs to double its own strength. With the remaining orcs becoming significantly stronger and in a bloodthirsty mood, the terror of the orcs would soon reach new heights. In the next part, we will see how far the fear of these orcs will escalate.